Hey everybody, welcome back to the SOLIDWORKS Electrical Implementation video series. This video we're going to talk about macros and what is a macro inside of SOLIDWORKS Electrical. Well, the way I like to describe it is more of a common schematic, something that I'm going to use over and over and over again. And it can be as small or as large as you need it to be. But the nice thing with it is that I can save these macros into my database and my collaborative server so that not only do I have access to them, but everybody on my team has access to them. So only one person has to create them going forward. So getting started, we have our basic little circuit here. It's our harness now because we've turned it into a harness. And in order to turn this into a macro, we need to simply select the star icon, the tab, and we can take this entire circuit. We're going to highlight everything associated to it, and we're going to you have to click on one of the part. You have to click on the wire or the edge of a connector and simply drag it over, and wait till you get the plus sign with your cursor. And now you're about to add it to your library. So this is important here. I would recommend naming this macro specific for what it is. Because if you intend to get more advanced with this tool and learn how to do things like Excel automation, the naming conventions do come into play and they will help you tremendously with just organization of your designs with the macros and using Excel automation. So in this case here, I'm not going to rename it, but I do recommend that you do rename it. So I'm going to go ahead and you can change the class. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this under connector assemblies. You can put it into a specific library just like everything else that we've created. Give it a specific name if needed. And just like that, I now have this new macro. Now this window on the right hand side is user specific. Not every user is going to have a connectors tab and a power supply tab. Actually, when you first start the software, you have a few of these, but you can always come in and create a new group. And now you can add what you want. So because in some cases, maybe I'm the comms guy and I deal with connectors all day long, but my counterpart that also working on the same project, he deals with or she deals with all of the PLC logic and everything else. So maybe they're dealing with different types of circuits. So you can organize this. It just helps you to organize your new circuits better. But all of this information is stored, you guessed it, inside of the macros manager, another library. We didn't cover this earlier. Going into this, we have classifications just like we had previously for all the other types of libraries. And we can come in and take a look, and you see that I added it to the connector assemblies, and now it is here inside of this particular library, which is convenient because now as I created this and I added this to my library, as I mentioned before, everybody on my team has access to this. I don't have to recreate this again. If there's something on this macro that I'd like to change, I can very well select this macro and I can open it and I can edit and make changes to this. My recommendation is if you're using this circuit for an existing project or a finalized project for that matter, I would recommend making a copy of that macro and editing the copy. That way you always have that original macro that is in those finalized versions of projects that you've already approved for build. So in order to add a macro, you're very simply going to find the one you want and drag it back over into your working space, into your schematic. Now here you have the ability to run through a few of the options. Do you want to keep the information about the cable, the harness, the connectors? Some teams like to change, especially the connector, right? Because in this case here, I now have J2 and P2. It didn't overwrite what I already had in my project. However, if I want to, I do have the ability to let the system know, no, I want to keep the existing mark, and now it will keep the J1 and P1. And if that's the case, now I have two symbols, both representing J1 and P1. Nothing says you have to do a connector and wires. I can select just this connector and turn it into a macro. Because keep in mind, everything on the back end of this assembly here, those base components, all the pins, maybe you're working with a larger schematic. Maybe it's something like this that you want to capture the entire thing, because all of these parts are something that you use all the time in most of your projects. Well, you can take everything in this schematic and now take that and turn it into a macro. And that way, when you're ready, you can do this and simply drag and drop that in. And you now have all of those new components with all of the base and all of the accessories and auxiliary components have now been added as components to this new project that we've been working on all along. So the macro feature is probably one of the most, if not the most, powerful feature in the software. It does help get your job done a lot faster. You do need to have things set up ahead of time before you start building macros, but once you set it up the first time, it's pretty straightforward and you can get your projects done just that much faster and out the door. So that was just a quick overview on what you can do with macros. Again, the next step after taking advantage of macros could potentially be Excel automation, which is a whole other feature. If you search the web, you can probably find a video or two on what Excel automation is if you're not familiar with it. But I hope this video helped in your understanding of what a macro is and how to build a macro. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.